Welcome, welcome, Sam Seder.
Oh, thank you, Molly. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's fun to see you. Um,
Good to see you.
yes, so we have these numbers, these economy numbers. I feel like every day is Groundhog Day, right? It's not working. The tariffs aren't working. The endless war in the Middle East, we thought, I mean, that always seemed like a great idea. That's not working. Like, it just feels like everything Trump is doing is not working. And somehow he doesn't, the job numbers, we're seeing these revisions, and it's just like typical Republican president stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two things, right? I mean, I think there's like a really major structural problem with our economy that I don't think, like, the second half of the Biden administration, let's put it, largely because of Manchin and cinema, but also of Biden allowing the process to drag out the way he did
Yeah.
in 2021, because there was a lot of great stuff in the American Rescue Act that would begin to address some of this stuff, and it ended up basically sunsetting and then Build Back Better, which I think was going to address some of this.
Manufacturing, certainly.
Manufacturing, I mean, all of like the industrial policy, but also like sort of like support for parental leave and an extension of the earned income, the child tax credit.
Credit, yeah.
There was a lot of things that would have addressed essentially our K-shaped economy. The antitrust, too, also
Yeah.
would have addressed this. None of that was sufficiently addressed under Biden. And the Trump administration is doing nothing but sort of like embedding the case
Right.
economy. I mean, Exxon and was it Exxon and Mobil came out with their largest profits quarters in the history of these massive money juggernauts.
Yeah.
So we have this increasingly wealth disparity, which ends up hurting people in a myriad of ways. We have this inflation. Now the job numbers came out today. They were negative territory.
Yeah.
Kevin Hassett would have you believe that that was a function of like, well, now there's no more immigrants.
I mean, that fucking guy. So he said, well, don't worry, because the jobs, yes, there are less jobs, but there are less people to take the jobs. When you don't know how Social Security works, this makes sense. But when you realize that that means there are less people paying into Social Security, that means there's less growth, there's less workers, there's less, that the economy is affected by that too.
100%. But also it sort of puts to the lie that they were taking our jobs.
Right. Well,
If they're
that's the
taking
goal.
our jobs, why did the jobs go away? Like, I mean, like it doesn't make any sense. If they went away, where are the jobs then?
Right.
There should be extra jobs, and there's not. Wages are depressed.
Yeah.
Wage growth is down, which also indicates there aren't jobs for somebody to go to. I think we're at like some type of peak in terms of women having to work two jobs. None of it's working. And you get into really, really dangerous territory where you start to see the economy flag and inflation still creeping up. And then you're talking about stagflation a little bit. So, I mean, the economy is a crap show. The Trump is never going to address the structural issues with it at all.
Right. No, definitely not.
And I have to just say, as a sidebar, the economy has to be addressed in a structural way. I mean, it has to happen,
Right.
or we're going to keep bouncing back and forth between fascists and, just basically non-fascist. But I'm most scared about things like, the agencies that have been completely debilitated, both from every other day you find out a new, Republican version strain of diarrhea that people are getting.
Right.
Because of whatever food is not healthy. And the IRS seems to be essentially completely broken, like just broken. And people aren't getting their refunds. We're obviously not auditing people with money anymore.
Right.
It's a real problem.
And it's worth remembering that the child tax credit actually lifted half of all children out of poverty. It was wildly successful. It wasn't
Successful.
a weird experiment that might have worked in 20 years. It literally worked. Republicans, and with the help of Kristen Sinema, who now lobbies for data centers, and Joe Manchin, who wants to come back into the political spotlight, with the help of those two, it just expired.
Yep.
Like, just no fanfare, nothing. So I do think that's a really important point. But I do also think, like, Trump is pretty clear that he just wants corporations to make a lot of money and rich people, and mostly himself and his family, to make a lot of money. And what I think that nobody is talking about here, and I think we should be talking about it, is how angry voters are. Because voters are really mad. And they're mad, I think, in a way that we will not really be able to get the full picture until after the midterms. But they're knocking out incumbents left and right. Republicans are getting creamed in, Trump plus 10, Trump plus 15, and even Democratic incumbents losing. And ultimately, this group, I think, is going, I think they want to see real change. And I think that these 2 years of Trumpism, or these 18 months of Trumpism, have made them only angrier.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think there is a general anger. I think there is a unique anger towards the Democratic leadership, I guess,
The establishment.
I think there's two things going on there. I think one, we're seeing really a 15-year project from Occupy Wall Street, where the left is, organizing, coalescing, getting, understanding what they need to do, finding the vehicles in which they can do this. I mean, I think that's part of a process. We saw that with Abdul Sayed this week. I also think that there is a broader non-ideological anger towards the Democratic Party, which is you guys suck. You suck on a competence level, not on an ideological level, although that may come through, but
they just want fighters.
But it's also there are these issues that I think it's not just that they're not fighting and that they're ineffective, right? I mean, they're failing. They failed. They did not beat Donald Trump. They failed. They haven't stopped any of this. But also, I do think that Gaza has become, it's not a litmus test. It's more of a ticket to entry. What are you talking about? If you can't answer this one question, what are you talking about? There's no way. I mean, this is what was really interesting to me about the race this week in Michigan. The most interesting dynamic, it seems to me, was Mallory McMorrow, because she was sent there as the cavalry for the failure of the Democratic establishment to have enough self-awareness as to even a quality candidate. I mean, Haley Stevens was, aside from her positions, which I think were bad positions to have, particularly in this environment, particularly around Israel, she's just a bad candidate. She wasn't crisscrossing Michigan. She was not articulating things well. She got defensive about her voice, and it's I'm sorry, let's grow up. So McMorrow was sort of primed to become her replacement, essentially, in this race. And the fact that she couldn't pull it off, and she is just a better candidate than Haley Stevens, generically speaking. But the fact that she had to maintain a certain issue set to get into position to get the money that Haley Stevens had, that's what doomed her. I mean, there were two things that basically doomed her, in my estimation. But the biggest was when she decided, I've got to go after Hassan Piker. And it's nobody knows who you're talking about, but why is she doing that? She's doing that for the donors, right? She's doing that for the donors. And so there's this interesting sort of catch-22 that McMorrow represents, which is, if you're not going to go the populist route, if you're not going to go the route where, Israel-Gaza is an 80-20 issue in the Democratic Party right now. If you're not going to go that route, you're going to have to take money that's going to put you on the wrong side of that 80-20 divide. And so there's a real sort of interesting dynamic at play. And it's not going to play out too much more because we're almost done with the primary season, but it's really interesting for the future.
I also think that the underwritten story here, there's so much anxiety in the pundit class about like, is this the radical left coming? And the reality is like Dr. El-Sayed's a good candidate. He speaks really well. Money out of politics, money in your pocket, Medicare for all. Like I want that. Like those are simple things that people want. And I think with Mallory, she just wasn't as good a candidate. But I also think that I think you're right, and I think the Democratic establishment kind of blew it. I think of Daniel Biss, who won that very hotly contested Illinois primary, and he was a candidate who ran Jewish from Israeli family. Grandmother was a Holocaust survivor, and AIPAC came in and said, if you do not support unconditional aid to us, we're going to come into this primary and we're going to take you out and we're going to spend against you. And he said, okay. And he made his whole campaign. I mean, he's quite smart. He was the mayor of Evanston, and he's a mathematician. He taught, very smart, but he made a big part of his campaign, him running against AIPAC, and the importance of having an Israel that does not do things that hurt Jews, ultimately, besides hurting Palestinians. And I think it was very effective.
Yep. What we're seeing as an analogy, when Elon Musk went to Wisconsin a year ago, April, to win the Supreme Court for conservatives there, his presence, the $18 million that he dumped into that race, actually became a liability, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're seeing now with AIPAC. I mean, you come in with $60 million from AIPAC, and it's almost like you're going to lose. That's an interesting dynamic, I think, that's going on there. And I don't think that's going to change. I think there's a lot of anger. There's a lot of frustration with Democrats from the Democratic side. And I think we're in the sort of like the harvest of that anger that has been sown. What they're talking about, I think, is they are conflating Zionism with Judaism. And I have a lot of theories as to why that happens. I mean, you and I think I'm a little older than you, but we grew up. I mean, let's put it this way. The Holocaust, when I was, my son is 13. The Holocaust was closer to temporally from when I was 13 than my son is to when Kurt Cobain killed himself. And so, like, I think many people are still growing up with that specter. There is a fear. I know that in my Jewish education, it was, you learned about the Holocaust and then you learned about Israel as the sort of like the response to the predicate of the Holocaust. And personally, I think this conflation is in and of itself is anti-Semitic. When Jews do it, they're obviously not doing it out of an anti-Semitism. I think they're doing it out of, frankly, like an ignorance or a trauma or whatnot. But I can tell you, like, I had a guy who went to my bar mitzvah, went to my sister's bar mitzvah, went to my other sister's bar mitzvah, probably spent half a dozen Seders with us over the years, maybe more. Call my dad a year ago and ask if I was anti-Semitic. And then my dad wanted to know if I was going to invite this guy to my son's bar mitzvah. And I'm like, yes, no, I'm not going to. I'm not going to allow any Jews at my son's bar mitzvah this year.
Because you're anti-Semitic.
Yes. I mean, so I think in some instances, it comes out of a genuine fear. I think there's also a conflation and a knowing conflation between Zionism and Judaism. The fact of the matter is if you're genuinely concerned about anti-Semitism, you should look at what's happening on the right. I'm not saying that there isn't anti-Semitism on the left. There's anti-Semitism everywhere on some level, but or at least a bias towards Jews. But there isn't anything remotely close on the left as to the right, if you're going to break it down in that way. It's just, it's an absurd comparison. What they're talking about is they're pushing back against anti-Zionism. And I think sometimes, you know, when you look at like Mamdani and Abdul El-Sayed, people are responding to the fact that they're Muslim. There's a lot more Islamophobia at play here than there is anti-Semitism in those instances, in my opinion. But I also think it's cynically used at times as a way of saying, I don't want somebody who's anti-Zionist. I also don't want somebody who's of Medicare for all.
Right.
I mean, I think that it's used in many ways in that way. I personally feel like Israel is making Jews a lot less safer than safer.
For sure.
Just on a purely empirical level. Don't tell me that we need Israel because it's the only place for Jews to be safe, and then and they're always in bomb shelters. Well, I get news for you. In this country, I'm not.
Yeah. And Netanyahu clearly is really mostly interested in protecting Netanyahu from going to jail, which in that way, he's very Trumpy.
He's very Trumpy, except for Trump is at a 32% approval rating, and Netanyahu is probably at a 78% approval or 72% approval rating or somewhere there. I mean, Netanyahu has been president for almost a third of the country's history, prime minister or whatever. Maybe it's a quarter. I mean, so
dark.
I wish there was greater daylight between Netanyahu and the Israeli people. I wish there was a growing political movement in Israel, that provided an alternate version of what Israel could be. I don't see it. I interview Israeli journalists. They don't see it. There's a problem with Israel. And, I remember having this conversation with a semi-conservative buddy of mine 15 years ago. And I was like, dude, it's people like you who are going to endanger Israel the most, because you're letting them drive drunk. And if you don't take away the keys right now, it's going to end with them careening off the side of a highway and in a fiery explosion. And I worry about that. You can only push people so much. You can only commit a genocide so publicly without the world responding. And I think that's where we're at.
Sam Seder, I hope you'll come back.
Of course I will. You know I will.